Unblinken Radio presents The Center with your host, DC Radical One.
Greetings, friends, family, allies, and enemies. I'm your host, DC Radical One. You have entered the center. Shout out to our wonderful producer, Cindy Ashby. You can check us out at Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeartRadio at On the Wake Up Radio. Also, you can check us out at otw2.com. That's otw2.com. Y'all let me know if the music is too loud. Some headphones that's on that last leg, so it's hard for me to measure. And I say this all the time, but I don't even know if I should waste time saying I'm not going to be long tonight, because I don't, it's kind of last minute, and probably a lot of people won't come in. But it is what it is. Oh, you said you can't hear it? Interesting. Okay, hold on. Because it's a little more live than me. So, all right, let me know now whether you got ripped off in it. Also, if you can do the honors of alerting some people on the Telegram side that we're on live, I'd appreciate it. First of all, let me see who's in here. BB48, brother, you got ripped off. BB48, RBG, BB48, brother Kevin, BB48, brother Elijah. I guess tonight is going to be one of those nights. There won't be any sisters on. So we'll see. Depending on how many people come in, is depending on how long I'll be on tonight. What I wanted to cover, I started off, I was just going to talk about the Russia-Ukraine situation. But then I realized that can't really cover the Russia-Ukraine situation without delving into what happened, I guess, 2 weeks ago now with the fall of the Assad Syrian government at the hands of U.S.-backed, quote-unquote, U.S. and Israeli-backed so-called rebels. And we'll see shortly who those rebels are connected to. So that's what I wanted to get into. And I also tied together how this is also connected to Africa and the Sahel. So let me just get started with the first article so that since we are late, not we, I am late. And I want to get out of here, 2 hours or less. Also, I will probably do a SBL talk tomorrow. But basically, I think I'm gonna end up trying to cram in a lot of content over the next couple of days before Kwanzaa and everything, and before I take my expected hiatus. So I'll let you all know that. But right now, the plan is come on tomorrow and do an SBL talk. And I may actually do one Friday and one Saturday, but one of them will deal with one of them will deal with pretty much one of the hottest things on the internet right now, Travis Hunter and what's her name, Cooking with Kaya. So we talk about that. I normally don't talk. Y'all know I normally don't react to stuff like that, but I think it's interesting. Some of the dynamics that are being exposed by these two internet stories. So we'll tie that in to that'll be an SBL talk discussion. Unless something comes up. So let me get started with the first article. And this is from AP. Says the fall of Bashar al-Assad after 13 years of war in Syria brings an end to a decades-long dynasty. Now, the reason that this is, well, one is world news, but the reason that this is important is because one, the United States and Israel have been trying to engineer this for, I don't even know how long. Actually, yes I do. Since 9/11. Yeah, they've been trying to engineer this since 9/11. I forgot. And I didn't load up the Wesley Clark. I don't know why I never loaded up the Wesley Clark video, but I didn't load up the Wesley Clark video. But Syria was one of the countries. So the last country that's left, and I think I might have said this last time I was on, last country that's left standing out of those 7 nations is Iran. So I posed a question. The question was, will Antony Blinken basically start a war with Russia before Trump can even get in office? Now, today we have, I guess, 31 days between now, as I'm speaking, or is it 32 days? Yeah, let's say 31 and a half for the sake of it. Let's say a month. Let's just say we're a month away from the inauguration of Donald Trump. You would think that in that time it'd be impossible to kick off World War III. You wouldn't really be correct if you thought that. Now, what's happening is with the fall of Assad, let's see who benefits from this. Let's go there. Well, okay, the U.S. benefits from it, although not majorly, not really, but let them tell us part of their interest. Israel benefits greatly. So, in fact, where's my map? Because it's time to do the map thing. I got my map. All right, here we go. All right, so let's look at it. And we're going to look at the state of each country. Y'all can let me know. Libya, after the assassination of Gaddafi by the United States, is a failed state. Egypt is a client state of America and really virtually a failed state. Sudan down here is currently having a civil war, which means it's a failed state. Iraq, after being destroyed by the United States, is essentially a failed state, and you could almost divide it in half between Eastern Iraq, which is falling under the influence of Iran, and Western Iraq, which is falling under the influence of the West. In the grand scheme of things, it's essentially a failed state. Jordan is completely in the bag with the West. So that's why they're still standing. Syria, now a failed state. Assad, the former leader, is in Moscow. Lebanon is under attack from Israel, and they're going to war with Israel. And then that's Israel, this little tiny country here. Currently, Israel is now invading Syria and destroying weapons, and Turkey is invading Syria. and America has secret forces that are also invading Syria. Also, as we'll see later on, Syria, BB 2 minute brother Safo. We'll see later on that the United States is aiding ISIS in Syria, which we can break it down like this now. ISIS is essentially Mossad. Al-Qaeda is essentially CIA. So whatever we think about, we hear about ISIS and Al-Qaeda, that we can now decipher that as to that's what it is, right? So whatever you see, whatever, Mossad, CIA, okay? So as we went through the map, beautiful day, straight black brothers, Sister Vanessa, glad to see you here. Yeah, glad to see you here. I'm glad you're here. So now, so that covers all of the countries that have been taken out by the U.S. since, you know, it was stated that that's what they wanted to do in the wake of 9/11. So about 23 years ago now, nearly a quarter century ago. The problem that this presents for Iran is that Hezbollah, which is in Lebanon here, and the Houthis, which are in Yemen here, if y'all can see the cursor, who is receiving their weapons, especially Hezbollah, was receiving their weapons from Iran through Iraq to Syria to Lebanon, which was allowing them to fight Israel to a standstill on the ground. Of course, Israel's getting their weapons from the United States, who have here in the Mediterranean many naval forces, right? So let's reset the I'll call it the risk board. With the fall of Syria, beats ex-Syria out, and I wish I had a thing I could draw, but I don't. I wasn't thinking about it. What you have now is Russia, Iran, pretty much isolated, going against NATO, the United States, who's not on the board here, but the United States and NATO is really one entity until Trump comes in office. And Israel, which is basically the United States. The United States government is controlled by Israel completely. And Turkey is playing both sides of the fence, which means they're mostly with the West. And against this country here, Iran. Now, for Iran, that's bad. For Hezbollah, that's bad. For the Houthis, this development is bad. For Russia, also bad. For the U.S., it's good. Because now this clears the way for the Greater Israel Project, which the Greater Israel Project really is there's a gas pipeline, and I can't remember exactly where it comes from. There's a gas pipeline that they're trying to run from Western Asia? Yeah, Western Asia through Turkey into Israel. And I got to get deeper into that so I can have the accurate information. So if I'm not 100% accurate, y'all forgive me. Right. And then the Greater Israel Project is the taking over of the so-called Holy Land here and expanding it. Right. And also the transplantation of people to the Ashkenazi homeland, which is the Ukraine here. Right. So have we got all that? Are we straight with all that? So that's where the risk board is today. Peace, straight black pride, brother Crow. So now let's go back to the article and deal with the fall of Assad, and we'll move forward from there. All right. So let's see what AP has to say. Says Syrian President Bashar al-Assad fled the country on Sunday, bringing to a dramatic close his nearly 14-year struggle to hold on to power as his country fragmented in a brutal civil war that became a proxy battlefield for regional and international powers. The exit of the 59-year-old Assad stood in stark contrast to his first months as Syria's unlikely president in 2000, when many hoped he would be a young reformer after 3 decades of his father's iron grip. At age 34, the Western-educated ophthalmologist appeared as a geeky, tech-savvy fan of computers with a gentle demeanor. But when faced with protests of his rule that erupted in March 2011 during the so-called Arab Spring, Assad turned to brutal tactics of his father to crush dissent. As the uprising hemorrhaged into an outright civil war, he unleashed his military to blast opposition-held cities with support from allies Iran and Russia. Now, let me come back here and say something real quick. One thing we have to understand is that anytime you hear about Arab Springs, color revolutions, or revolutions in places in Eastern European countries or places like Ukraine, that's just the CIA. These are not organic movements. It's the CIA, right? Basically, what the United States intelligence services do is what they accuse, what they've accused, like what they used to accuse the Soviet Union of doing, right? Back in the day when Black people were rising up in the 50s and 60s, many times people would try to say that if the Soviet Union or, was backing whoever, right? Let's pick whatever Black group that you want to pick. Even before they straight Black Pride, brother, Desolate, right? But in reality, the United States does that in other countries. So if we're being completely honest about our movement, the movements, the Black movements that were for liberation, Black Panther Party, old school, and I say old school, I mean before 75, NOI, UNIA, these organizations, there was no outside international people who were funding these organizations when they began. They began organically as a protest to what was taking place. Like, there was nobody, first of all, when Mr. Garvey rose up, there was nobody even in a position, right, to be sympathetic and help Black people. Most of Africa was colonized. The Caribbean was essentially colonized. But yeah, there's just nobody there at that time, right? Like, European had just totally dominated. You move forward into 30s and 40s when the nation first started. So you're in between World War I and World War II. Again, nobody, let's be honest, nobody cared about Black people. You know what I'm saying? So you get into the 50s, and you get to like civil rights movement. We know, of course, now that there were many greetings to jazz. We know that there was support from and training from Jewish interests as far as the civil rights movement. But those Jewish interests were actually working against the interests of stronger organizations, even in the South, like Deacons for Defense and Robert F. Williams, where, of course, Martin Luther King went directly against Robert F. Williams. And you can find that article in Robert F. Williams' book, Negroes with Guns. So I say all that to say that I just want to put some of that history out there. The things that the United States accuses other people of is the things that the United States often does. So now let's get back to the article. Now it says international rights groups and prosecutors allege widespread use of torture and extrajudicial killings in Syria's government-run detention centers. The war has killed nearly 500,000 people and displaced half the country's pre-war population of 23 million. So that means you talk about 11.5 million people. So almost 1 million people a year as this war is going on. The conflict appeared to be frozen in recent years, with Assad's government regaining most of Syria's territory, while the northwest remained under the control of opposition groups and the northeast under Kurdish control. For those who are old enough, you'll remember that the Kurds were often backed by the U.S., the Kurdish people in Iraq. So for whatever reason, and I'm not really sure, the United States has always backed the Kurds in these different scenarios in these different countries. I'm not really sure the origin of the Kurdish people because they look kind of like an Eastern European people, but they are in these Middle Eastern. They have settlements in these various Middle Eastern countries, so I'm not really sure about the history of that. Now, it says, although Damascus remained under crippling Western sanctions, neighboring countries have begun to resign themselves to Assad's continued hold on power. The Arab League reinstated Syria's membership last year, and Saudi Arabia in May announced the appointment of its first ambassador since severing ties with Damascus 12 years ago. Now let's start right here. Think about what they're saying. The Arab League, right, is siding with the West against their alleged so-called Arab brothers. See, and the reason I want to point that out is because this is what happens. We look at our leaders, whether here or internationally, and see that they bow down and cow to the West. Greetings to Deuce Rex. And we don't look at other people and see the same process applied to other people, right? So we don't look at, we don't think about one of the reasons that the things that go on in the quote unquote Arab world go on because a lot of the leaders are just bought and paid for by the West, including, Jordan and Saudi Arabia are the worst offenders. Like they're completely, Jordan is just, I can't even, I'm trying to see who I can compare them to. But Jordan, they're just total slaves to the West. Like total slaves to the West. Like it's embarrassing, right? And Saudi Arabia is this weird, they've had this weird relationship with the U.S. for a long time, where the U.S. lets them do what they want to do internally as long as they keep the petrodollar thing happening. And, of course, they hold the two holiest sites in Mecca. But the way that the leaders live is basically 100% contradictory to what the Quran and what the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad says that the leaders should live. So make of that what you will. You know what I'm saying? Straight black pride to Materu Kemet. So that's that. Now, what I wanted to get to real quick, because again, I know I keep saying real quick, but it's never real quick. It says, anyway, however, the geopolitical tide turned quickly when opposition groups in northwest Syria in late November launched a surprise offensive. Government forces quickly collapsed while Assad's allies, preoccupied by other conflicts. This is the important part, right? Russia's war in Ukraine and the year-long wars between Israel and the Iran-backed militant groups Hezbollah and Hamas appeared reluctant to forcefully intervene. See, now that paragraph right there shows you how the intersecting events are connected, right? So, and that's why I said you really got the West against Russia / Iran / China. It's kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out / Turkey, kind of definitely playing both sides of the fence. So in essence, Russia is basically laying waste to Ukraine. They're holding off on the eastern side of Ukraine. They're reclaiming basically the entire western side of Ukraine, and we'll get to that. And basically, Iran is trying to force Israel to focus on their resistance people, which is mainly Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, in order to keep the genocide, basically to try to slow down the genocide in Gaza. It's worked to a degree, but this is going to make it infinitely harder, as I showed you all the map earlier. For those that didn't see the map, go back to the first section and you'll understand what I'm talking about. So that shows how all these things are interrelated. Now, how they relate to Africa is, of course, our brothers in the Sahel. In fact, let me see if the map brings up the Sahel. Let me try to get back to that. Hold on. Let's see. Yeah, the map brings up the Sahel, at least part of it. So the Sahel, of course, is Mali, Niger, and I believe I can't remember which one. One of these countries down here is Burkina Faso. It might be this one. Not 100% sure. My apologies. But the point being is that Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have formed one confederation. That confederation came under attack by so-called Islamist rebels, which we know really means either Mossad or CIA, right? The Ukraine, which we talked about up here, which is at war with Russia here, gave information to those rebels who were kind of in this nebulous region here to attack Mali here, right? So I just wanted to show that to let us know that this conflict is basically swallowing up the world, because different countries are coming together to try to resist, in essence, what we think of, at least what we think of as Western hegemony, is really global Israel. That's really what it is, because Israel has total control of the executive branch of the United States. So when people talk about the United States hegemony, blah, 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 that's over. It's Israeli hegemony that's working through the United States. There's no, at this moment, and we'll see in a month what happens, but at this moment, there's absolutely no resistance to Israeli global hegemony from anyone in the West, whether it be Canada, America, Mexico. I mean, Mexico, they have a Jewish president, so we know they're not going to be resisting anything. Brazil, yeah, like you name it, like there's no, and nowhere in Europe. Like Europe is in chaos. I need to do something. I don't know, video or something. Europe is in population collapse, which will eventually lead to economic collapse, which will, of course, probably lead to them trying to do something militarily to stay relevant as powers on the world stage. So that's a little known thing that no one's talked about, right? One of the reasons that when we saw the C-19 thing happen, why it was so devastating in Italy, for example, was because Italy's population, like 25% of their population is like over 60 or something crazy. And so their population is aging and they're not reproducing. Now, interestingly, this same phenomenon is also taking place in a lot of Asian countries, right? South Korea, specifically, Japan is, they just going through it. They just not reproducing. There was one other country I can't remember. Oh, China. Yeah. Weirdly enough, China had this one-child policy, and now they can't produce enough people. And I just throw this nugget out here, then I get back to what we were talking about, because I know I'm on a tangent. But it's been so long since I spoke to you all, and there's just so much stuff that I got on my mind. Rockefeller Foundation helped set up that one-child policy for China. I'm just putting that out there. So now, with the fall of Assad, as I said before, now I'll reiterate again since we got more people who have come in. The ability of Israel to now have a clear path to attack Iran is now clear, and for them to not get attacked as much from Lebanon, because as I stated before, what was taking place was Iran was getting weapons through what is in essence, in reality, their half of Iraq up into Syria, down into Lebanon to fight off Israel, to keep Israel from just completely obliterating Gaza. That also was helped give weapons to Hamas. At the same time, and I'm not sure about what route, because I know good and well wasn't coming through here. Maybe they were transported by boat here to the Gulf of Aden. The Houthis here were shutting off any reinforcements to help Israel coming through here, and also getting weapons and also attacking from here into Israel to build up a wall. So when you had Syria here, you had this wall here and half of Iraq, and that protected Iran, right? And then, of course, they could not come through here because Yemen is here, and they could destroy people coming through the Gulf of Aden. Now, unfortunately for Iran, the way is clear because, of course, I say Jordan's complete and total shields. Half of Iraq basically belongs to the West, and the half that belongs to Iraq that belongs to Iran does not have the sophisticated anti-aircraft capability to protect Iran from a strike. Also, because Turkey plays both sides of the field, and Syria no longer has the weapons to defend their airspace, Israel could conceivably come through Turkey for direct access to Iran here, which is why this is important, because this will embolden the Sister Najee. This will embolden the U.S. to attack Iran through Turkey after a false flag attack that I predict will happen early in Mr. Trump's presidency, or possibly even before, right? Y'all know I normally don't make predictions, but I just believe, I have reason to believe that there's an 85% chance of a false flag taking place, possibly some type of attempt on the life of Mr. Trump, or some type of homeland attack, or some type of infrastructure attack, like on America, that will be blamed on Iran in order to force Iran to attack. Force the U.S. to attack Iran. Greetings to Sister Sonia. Now, why is that a big deal? Well, the problem is, if that takes place, more than likely, It's two things. We know, because we have talked about before, Iran has the missile technology to obliterate Israel, right? But Israel has nuclear technology to devastate Iran. Iran says that they do not have nuclear weapons yet. But what we do know is they have all the technology necessary to make nuclear weapons. And they also can get their, if they need more uranium, because of the deals that Russia has made with the Sahel, Iran, if need be, can make a deal with Niger to get the uranium needed, and they already have the missile technology to obliterate Israel if need be. Literally, I believe the only reason that they haven't obliterated Israel is, one, they start World War III, and two, there are so many because Gaza is right there, so it sounded interesting. They always talk about human shields, but literally, while destroying the people in Gaza, destroying the Palestinians, they're also using them as a human shield, because the more devastating weapons that Iran and Russia have, they won't use them because the Palestinians are right there, right? So that's kind of our opening overview of the world stage as it currently stands. Are there any questions? And Sister Sonia says Blinken is a guy that said Africa streams the Russian propaganda. Yeah, Anthony Blinken is he's a dual citizen. He's a dual Israeli citizen. So that's all you need to know, right? I've said this before, and I'll say it again. People who are dual citizens should not be sitting that close to the highest office of the land. They shouldn't have the authority to negotiate peace and do all these other things, as he has as the Secretary of State. He should not be running the foreign affairs of the United States as a citizen of another country. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why this isn't more controversial and why more people aren't outraged about it. But this is a reality situation, right? So I have absolutely no love for Blinken, and I don't trust him. And the bad part is, I know good and well that Blinken is making all of the foreign policy decisions, and who knows what other decisions that he's making, because we don't know when Mr. Biden is losing. Okay, he probably has already checked out. Mr. Biden is like, you ever rooted for a football team that stinks and the season is over, but it's like 6 games left, but they're they're one of the 3 worst teams in the league. So let's say they're like 3-9, but unfortunately, what is it now? 17 games. So yeah, they 3-9, but they still got to play 5 more games. You know what I'm saying? So they, guys are pulling up injured and hey, whatever, getting suspended and coming late to meetings because they already checked out. That's Mr. Biden. He's checked out. Like he's giving pardons left and right and commuting people's sentences and just, he's like, whatever, man. This thing will be over soon enough. So now let me get back to this article because I had strayed away somewhat. And y'all got any questions, put it in the chat. But you got ripped off, stop me at 10 o'clock so I can do my usual spiel. And then we go from there. So back to Assad. I think we've covered that. Let's see. It says, all right, let's look at a little bit of it. It says Assad came to power in 2000 by a twist of fate. His father had been cultivating Bashar al-Assad's older brother Basil as his successor, but in 1994, Basil was killed in a car crash in Damascus. Wonder if that was actually a car crash, or if that, makes me, or was there some Winter Soldier action happening for those of you all who are Marvel fans? Anyway, Bashar was brought home from his ophthalmology practice in London, put through military training, and elevated to the rank of colonel to establish his credentials so he could one day rule. When Hafiz al-Assad died in 2000, Parliament quickly lowered the presidential age. Wait, what? Lowered the presidential age from 40 to 34. Bashar's elevation was sealed by a national referendum in which he was the only candidate. Well, that's one way to get in charge. Hafiz, a lifelong military man, ruled the country for nearly 30 years, during which he set up a Soviet-style centralized economy and kept such stifling hand over dissent that Syrians feared to even joke about politics to their friends. He pursued a secular ideology that sought to bury sectarian differences under Arab nationalism and the image of heroic resistance to Israel. He formed an alliance with the Shiite cleric leadership in Iran, sealed Syrian domination over Lebanon, and set up a network of Palestinian and Lebanese militant groups. All right, let's stop right there. I'm glad I read that, because that shows you why they don't like him. His father, by aligning himself with Iran and setting up groups in Palestine and Lebanon, basically, I mean, are we saying he's a good person? I mean, probably not. Let's just be honest. I mean, people are good people that are in government anywhere in the world at this point. No, but was he resisting Israeli domination? Yeah. So that's why Israel wanted to get him out of the way. And the son was continuing the work of the father to the best of his ability. And that's why we have what we have. Now, let's go to our next article, because spent 40 minutes on this one. Now, it says, why is Israel attacking Syria after the fall of Bashar al-Assad? Says Benjamin Netanyahu welcomed the fall of Bashar al-Assad, and we see why, as we read this month, and claimed that his decision to fight to the end against Hamas and Hezbollah had contributed to changing the face of the Middle East. Changing the face of the Middle East means achieving their goals of the Greater Israel Project. Just want to translate that into clear English. Now, since then, Israel has launched its largest bombing campaign on Syrian soil since the 1973 Yom Kippur War. The Israeli army has also made an incursion to establish a buffer zone between the Golan Heights and Syrian territory. Now, what they're not saying here is that the Golan Heights actually is Syrian territory. So what they're actually doing is not creating a buffer zone. They're stealing more land, right? Brother Crow, you had a question? Said, what do you think about the new president of Ghana? I haven't had a chance to look into that yet. When I have some information, which I'll be completely honest, probably won't be until I probably won't do it. I'll have to see. I don't even, because I won't. I was gonna try to give you a time frame, but I don't really know. I have to look and see, and try to talk to some people and look up some information to see who he really is. I'll just put it like this: as of right now, as of this moment, the only politicians on the continent that I trust, as far as believing that they have the people's interests at heart and are African nationalists at their core, are the three kings of the Sahel: Shiani, our brother in Burkina, and our brother in Mali, right? So those three kings, those are the only ones I trust. Everyone else, the gentleman in, so what country is the young? It's a young brother that just took over. Him, I don't trust any of them as of yet. I saw, brother, you got ripped off. I see what you're saying. I saw the brother in Gabon. I saw what he said, and I'm looking. Here's what I think is happening. You know, I'm only taking this tangent because y'all asked. Here's what I think is happening. The advancements made by, because it's only been 2 years, the advancements made by the AES and the popular support they're getting from their people, right? And the things that they're able to do as far as improving their economy and improving themselves militarily, even though they're facing opposition, terrorist attacks and assassination attempts. Those things, I think, two things are happening. One, I think it's emboldening some other leaders who see this and like, oh, okay, you can do this. Let me watch them close and see how they working it, and maybe I can get into it. It's emboldening other resistance groups, like the Kenyan youth. I keep trying to find a video. I can't find a video. The Kenyan youth trying to meet, and I think they did meet with Brother Traore in Burkina Faso. And then, unfortunately, something else is going to happen, because this always happens now. This is a thing they do. Pretend leaders are going to come in the wake of this burgeoning movement and try to basically try to imitate what they're doing in the Sahel, but they're not sincere. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I'll say I can't give you an answer, because I have to actually watch people and listen to them to see what moves they make, to see who's who, right? We've been watching the brothers in the Sahel, and we've been listening to Brother Traore, and we see the people are with him, and we see he has the spirit of the ancestors with him. He has the spirit of Thomas Sankara, right? And some of our other ancestors with him. So we can see that, right? If you know what you're looking at, it's totally obvious. Some of these other people, man, you gotta examine it and see. Now, thank you, brother. You got ripped off. So, all right, let me get back to this article real quick. It says the Israeli army also made an incursion to. Okay, I've got it. Israel's statement and actions are evidence that it welcomes the fall of a key piece in the Iran-led axis of resistance, but also that it is worried of the rebel groups that have seized power in Damascus. They're not really worried, because they know who they are. In light of this, Israel's taking a better safe than sorry approach, that while the new Syrian government's intentions remain unclear, Israel is doing its best to render the country toothless. Now, here is one of the main reasons why they're doing it. Weapons, which of course Assad had a lot of weapons, and he had a large military, and weirdly enough, they just all disappeared. You know what I'm saying? The military. But what can often happen in these situations is that a charismatic military leader can shed his Syrian uniform and come back as a revolutionary and overthrow the overthrowers and establish a government, and then go even harder than Assad, who wasn't a military man. So Israel, look, you got to give credit when somebody does something, for lack of a better word, smart. They're like, nah, let's blow up the weapons now, right? So they don't have a true Syrian revolutionary, as opposed to this CIA Mossad crew that they got. Come back, take over, and wage holy hell on Israel, right? So that's what's going on with that. Now, and I don't know why I just going slow with these articles, but I guess because I just keep veering off into other subjects. According to the IDF, their 600 strikes have destroyed around 80% of the military capability of Assad's former army. Israel is also seeking to ensure it has freedom of action in Syria's skies for years to come, right? Right. Freedom of action in serious skies. Why do they need freedom of action in serious skies? Because what we talked about before, because they plan to attempt to destroy Iran and they need that airspace. The first targets to be destroyed were all air defense systems. It says, what does Israel want in Syria? Israel's ground incursion are pursuing several objectives. The first is to so-called secure strategic areas from which attacks could be launched towards either Syria or Israel. No, towards Israel. The second is to create a buffer zone between the two countries and thus avoid a surprise like the Hamas attacks on October 7th. The third is to acquire a bargaining chip for possible negotiations with the new Syrian regime. If Damascus wishes to recover these territories, it will have to show goodwill and negotiate with Israel. Another case of Israel's well-known land for peace diplomacy. Israel is celebrating the fall of Assad because it breaks the noose that Israel had been patiently tightening around Israel's borders in Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria. Tehran's pincer is now broken and rendered useless. From the point of view of Israel's wider conflict with the Islamic Republic, the collapse of Assad's regime is a strategic victory for Israel. However, the groups who defeated Assad, and by extension Iran and Syria, are unlikely to show a friendly attitude towards Israel. I disagree with that, but we shall see. If Syria were to descend into anarchy or become a jihadist state, they want to be sure it lacks the tools to harm them. Now, let me just say this real quick. No so-called jihadist state has done anything to Israel. Most of the so-called jihadists are Sunni. They claim to follow the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but their actions betray them as being tools of the West, right? The people who actually are resisting Israel all happen to be, for the most part, with the exception of Islamic Jihad, they all tend to be Shia, right? Follow the path of Imam Ali. So the idea that just because some quote unquote Islamists are going to take over or could take over, right, does not mean that they're going to be enemies of Israel, because thus far the quote unquote Islamists have failed to do anything in Israel and have failed to protect the people of Gaza. Because, for example, there's no bigger quote unquote Islamists than, of course, Saudi Arabia. Is Saudi Arabia doing anything to help the people of Palestine? Not to my knowledge. If they're doing it under the table. So that's why I disagree with that statement. Now, earlier I talked about the fact that ISIS is being supported by the US. So real quick, what I want to do, because I haven't done it, I want to just bring up this video and you can watch we can watch this video real quick where they stated, you got to pay attention though, because it's quick and they just gloss over it and go on, keep moving. So y'all know how we do. We pause the music and we load the clip.
After the sudden collapse of the Assad regime in Syria, rebels seized President Bashar al-Assad's palace just 2 weeks after they launched an offensive against his government. The dictator, now in Russia, granted asylum by President Putin. ABC's Karen Travers is at the White House, where the Biden administration is celebrating.
After more than 50 years in power, the oppressive Assad regime deposed in just 11 days, overthrown by rebel fighters.
Assad was the author of the killing of hundreds of thousands of people, the oppression of religious and ethnic minorities as well. And so, from our perspective, it is good that he is gone.
The leader of the rebels who brought down Bashar al-Assad is a former al-Qaeda member who turned against the terror group and is promising a turning point for the region. The rebels took over state television, declaring the city of Damascus liberated. Inside the presidential palace, they seized a display of Assad's massive wealth, a wide array of luxury goods. Citizens ransacking the building, carrying out furniture, taking selfies, and firing guns into the air. Russia has confirmed that Assad is in Moscow, where a Kremlin spokesman says he and his family were granted political asylum. President Biden describing the situation as a fundamental act of justice, but also acknowledging the uncertainty of the situation.
It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future for their proud country.
Meanwhile, there's now renewed hope for the family of Austin Tice, the American journalist kidnapped in Syria in 2012 and believed to have been held by the Assad regime.
So maybe this is the moment that will lead to his release, and I know that we are actively hoping and praying for that.
The Biden administration is providing an incentive to get Austin Tice back on American soil, offering a reward to anyone who can provide information. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
Now, did y'all catch that? They said the leader of the quote unquote the rebels, right, is quote unquote former Al Qaeda. Listen, the U.S. as of right now, which means CIA and also the intelligence. Oh, thank you, brother RBG. They're trying to clean up the image of this guy. The group that he's leading is designated under the Biden administration, but I think originally designated under possibly Mr. Obama. They're designated as terrorists. This guy is technically right now a terrorist. Now maybe they took him off the list, right? But the U.S. is backing him. He did an interview with CNN, and I'm gonna get to CNN in a minute. So I got another clip, and they're trying to make this guy seem like some type of freedom fighter, but according to them, he's been labeled, and according to them, him and his organization have been labeled terrorists. God, look, y'all know me. I don't make this stuff up. You know what I'm saying? I just find it and I just laugh, and I'm just like, of course they're backing the terrorists. In the same way that they're backing the terrorists. Thank you, brother. I'm gonna get there. The same way they're backing the terrorists who are trying to disrupt the Sahel Alliance, right? It's plain and simple. So, again, I'm your host, DC Radical 1. You can follow me on Instagram at DC.Radical1, on Twitter at DC_Radical_ONE, on OTW2 at DC Radical 1. And the Cash App is $DC Radical 1. And you can email me at DC.Radical_1 at protonmail.com. So this Sunday at we're celebrating the 8th, and we're doing our 8th celebration of Dr. Chancellor Williams, right? Dr. Chancellor Williams, who wrote The Destruction of Black Civilization, which I think is basically the most important book for Black people to read. Period. End of discussion. In this day and time, if you ask me, well, what's the most important recent book? Well, after you read The Destruction of Black Civilization, because I think you need to read The Destruction of Black Civilization, well, there's a couple of books by our brother Genie that you should read. You know, I just say it like that. I'm not going to say the titles. I'm just going to, and y'all know why. So don't worry about putting it in the chat and y'all know what I'm talking about. So yeah, this is our 8th anniversary. So basically what I'm going to do, oh, I forgot to say this too. I forgot. Yes, sister, you're right. There is a blueprint for organizing in the back of the book, which most people don't get to the back of the book and they don't get that far. We normally, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna film it, but what we're having for that is, and I don't have my phone, so I can't read the announcement. So I'll put it in a what's name, but most of y'all who are listening to me now are not in the area. What we're going to do is we're going to have a breakfast at Busboys and Poets. Tangentially, sidebar, I found out that my favorite black-owned vegan restaurant in DC is gone out of business, which is still vegan. So that's quite disappointing. So anyway, we're going to meet at the Busboys and Poets in Anacostia for brunch. Then we're going to proceed there to have the gravesite ceremony in Suitland, Maryland, at the gravesite of Dr. Chancellor Williams. We do this every year around his birthday, and we're going to be doing that Sunday morning. What I'm going to do is I'm going to film that. No, Soul Vegetarian is, we don't have a Soul Vegetarian in DC anymore. We used to have a Soul Vegetarian in DC. New Vegan, I think, bought the building the Soul Vegetarian was in because they moved and did. Anyway, it's a long story. Gentrification is winning in DC. Let's play this such. Gentrification is winning, and black people are losing. But yeah, we're gonna have the breakfast on Sunday morning. We're gonna go to the gravesite at noon, and then that will be our celebration of Dr. Chancellor Williams Day. Y'all know I used to do lectures. I used to do Africa versus Everybody, Dr. Chancellor Williams Day. I don't really have a venue to do that, at least to do it for free. And no one, the spirit of the people just, it doesn't seem to be there. So I couldn't. I mean, I didn't even think about it. I didn't even, yeah. I guess conceivably I could have done it in Baltimore, but it didn't even occur to me. I wasn't even in the mindset to do it. It did just give me an idea. Yeah, the college day is coming up. Anyway, yeah, so we do that every year. We're gonna do it this year. If anybody would like to donate to that cause, you can donate via Cashapp at $ DC Radical 1. I greatly appreciate it. Oh, which leads me to this real quick. Everyone who has joined via the membership, I greatly appreciate you all. The only reason I'm even asking you to donate anything this month is because apparently, according to YouTube, the membership money wasn't recorded soon enough. So all of that money will not be paid out this month, which would have been paid out actually Sunday morning. I have to wait till next month, a complete and total month from now. Needless to say, I was disappointed because that was going to be my, was going to be my weekend money. I was going to use that money to celebrate the, Dr. Chancellor Williams Day. So that is that. Now, Brother Jeannie has another lecture coming up February 1st. And I will put that in the community tab a couple of times. And I don't know how I never did it. I'm talking about putting up the Dr. Chancellor Williams Day event for 2 days and it never happened. So that's my mistake. So it is up on my Instagram page and I'll put it in the community tab of YouTube. Also, Brother Jeannie was in Atlanta on the 14th at Black Dot. He said the event went well. I don't believe he filmed it because these events have turned out to be more intimate and more. It's just more talking with the people And so a lot of them won't get filmed. Some of them have been filmed. You know, I have those. And those of you all who have a membership, like I said, once I get the recording or whatever from this Sunday cleaned up, as long as the audio comes out good, which it should, since y'all paid for a microphone. Because it's always, first of all, it's always windy out there. It's always cold out there. And it's always noisy out there. So, but you got ripped off. What you saying? You'll be where? Help me out here. Are you saying you coming here for Dr. Chancellor Williams Day, or you saying you gonna be with JD in February? Let me know. So, sister, if you know anybody, or if you got a venue, y'all got a black bookstore or something like that, you know, or if you know some brothers doing some community organizing, if you make a way, he'll come. I'm sure he don't have no issue going to Chicago. So yeah. You said okay, right, well, yeah, we'll talk about that. Brother, you got rid of now that we finished with all those announcements. All this is talking about is the Iran's axis of resistance. For those that don't know, Iran's axis of resistance is Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas in Palestine, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and Iran. They're all working together along with Russia. Right. So it says what's left of Iran's axis of resistance, the axis of resistance of which only the pro-Iranian militias group under the so-called or under the Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces and the Houthis in northern Yemen remain intact, was intended as a tool both to achieve Tehran's regional hegemony and to deter a possible attack on Iran. Actually, what it really set up for is to neutralize Israel / the United States. That's it. Like all this other stuff is to neutralize Israeli hegemony, which and the new Israel project to expand and take over all these countries. It's plain and simple. It says, however, Israel's indirect victory over Iran in Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria may end up generating a greater threat, because the simplest and most radical solution to Iran's year of setbacks would be to abandon any ambiguity and develop nuclear weapons. The precedents are clear. The only regimes and countries that survive are those that have nuclear weapons. Those that divested themselves of their nuclear programs or failed to complete them, such as I don't think Libya was even ever trying to get nuclear weapons, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Libya, Iraq, Syria, and I don't know why they put Ukraine in here, because the fact of the matter is that Ukraine was overthrown by the CIA, have suffered either invasions or regime changes. Tehran knows that completing its nuclear program would be a point of no return. It would offer guarantees against foreign attack on its territory, but it would also mean international isolation. Iran, however, is not North Korea. It is not a country that can easily cut itself off from the world, as such a move would trigger economic and social upheaval that may in turn lead to revolts that could possibly overthrow the regime. It could also lead to the development of nuclear programs in Saudi Arabia and Turkey, which would not serve Iran's interests. Let's just stop right here. Here's the reality of the situation. Iran is going to get nuclear weapons. Iran can get nuclear weapons whenever they want. We've had this discussion before. The only thing that has stopped them so far is that a fatwa was set in place by the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah could reverse the fatwa at any moment. If Iran feels an existential threat to Iran, they will complete their nuclear weapons. if Russia feels an existential threat to Russia, Russia will launch their nuclear weapons. Iran and their fatwa basically forbids them from developing nuclear weapons because, according to the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad, when you wage war, you're not supposed to like destroy the like the land and the animals and things like that. You're not supposed to destroy nature in war. And so they have basically judged that using nuclear weapons would go against that prohibition of the Prophet. However, if it's kill or be killed, then all that stuff goes out the window, right? So that's why the fatwa was issued, but that's why it can also be retracted. And they also already have the technology to put together, they know how to do it. And they've been working on missile technology, as I talked about in a previous show, for 30 years. Anyone in the region, they can touch. Israel, Turkey, whoever, right? They can touch them if they want to. Those U.S. ships that are out in the Mediterranean, they can get touched. Like, they can touch anybody they need to touch. They just don't have intercontinental ballistic missiles. But of course, they can get that technology from Russia. And if they get that technology, then anybody they need to touch on Earth can get touched, right? So in essence, what's really going on is that Israel wants to destroy Iran because Iran is the last holdout against Israeli hegemony. But they don't want to go. They know they can't handle Iran one-on-one. So they got to get the U.S. to back them up, right? U.S. again, we talk about just, control by Israel. So that's why this collapse is bad for Iran. What it does, though, is that it puts Africa on the board as a bigger player, because the only people who are really resistant to global Israeli hegemony at this time, even though they're not openly against it, like saying we're against it, they're just against it by the principles that they believe in, are people in the Sahel. Because the more that wherever they are, the more that black people, wherever they are, free themselves, the more it weakens the people that they're feeding, right? So here's an example that we can all understand. There was a time when, I believe it's the late 90s, where various people in the hip hop industry were going to come together, get their own distribution, and build and form a union for artists. So people could have like healthcare and stuff like that, retirement packages, and again, distribute their own records and break away from the music industry, which, the hip hop aspect of the music industry at that time, and I'm sure now, was largely just owned and controlled by people that happen to be Jewish, right? So if that happens, it would have taken money out the owners of the music industry's pocket and put more money into the artist's pocket, right? Because if you know anything about the music industry, like, the contracts are crazy and the way they pay are crazy. Because basically everything that you do as far as your recording, whether you have live instrumentation that you pay for, or you use samples that you got to clear, everything is done as an advance. And then when you sell records, they recruit their money first before they pay you, right? That's how it works. I've seen a record contract before. I've read a record contract before. I've read a management contract and a label contract. When you reason that I'm unknown is because I read the contract. Okay, it's just, I mean, it's just a flim flam, being completely honest, right? So, in that same way that confederation had taken place, it would have taken money out of the pockets of those people. It's the same way that black people raising up in Africa now just takes money out of certain people's pockets and limits their ability to get certain resources. It's the same process. We don't think of it that way because we don't come together and compare notes, right? Just like when I did the thing breaking down the Congo situation, and I had no idea that some random Jewish guy who I had never heard of was making just making boatloads of money taking resources out of the Congo. Of course, I should have known because like they control that whole diamond trade in New York, so it should have been obvious. But I just had no idea. I had never heard of the guy, right? So it's that same process that now makes Africa a player in these global events that are taking place. Now, let me see. Man, I feel like I've covered a lot tonight. Hey, y'all let me know. Is everything that we talked about being clear thus far? Or is there anything that y'all like, yo, DC, that I just don't get it? That don't make no sense, bro. Y'all let me know. So that's the resistance. That's what it means as far as the fall of Assad, and that pretty much covers that. Let's see. Oh, the only thing I want to do real quick. Let's see. I wanted to talk about these rebels. Let me go back. This says, who are the Syrian rebels that toppled Assad and taking Damascus? Says after 10-day offensive, rebel forces in Syria captured the capital of Damascus, toppled the regime. The Rebel Military Operations Command for the Islamist Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or so-called HTS, claimed on Sunday the president was no longer in the capital, which now we know that's correct. We declared the city of Damascus free of the tyrant Bashar al-Assad. Now, here's the thing. You see this Hayat Tahrir al-Sham? That is a terrorist group that used to have a whole nother name. And we're going to go down where it says, what do we know about HTS? The rebel offensive over the past 10 days has been waged by HTS and a collection of Turkish-backed Syrian militias known as the Syrian National Army. HTS has its roots in what? Al-Qaeda. So we see I'm not making up stuff. And it is considered a terrorist organization by the United States. So the United States is celebrating the victory of Al-Qaeda. Again, I can't make this stuff up. Now, this guy, Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, he's the HTS leader, who in recent days is what? Trying to distance himself from his quote-unquote jihadist past. Jalani was born in Saudi Arabia to Syrian parents from the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights and was raised in Damascus. Jalani said in an interview with PBS in 2021 that he fought for Al-Qaeda in Iraq during the American occupation. Right? He's not denying any of this. Jalani was arrested by American forces and held for more than 5 years in several detention facilities, including the infamous Abu Ghraib. Jalani says his ideology has since evolved. What that means is that they turned him. That means he was a militant, and now he's likely either an informant or he's full CIA doing the bidding of CIA and Mossad. Now, says amid the outbreak of the country's civil war in 2011, the chaos allowed ISIS to rise in the Iraq-Syria border region and seize swaths of territory in the Levant. The conflict also became a proxy battleground, as we said, drawing in major world powers, including the US, Russia, Iran, Israel, and the Gulf states. Assad retained nominal control of much of the country with Russia, Iranian, and Hezbollah assistance. But last month's surprise rebel offensive revealed the weakness of the regime as fighters surged out of rebel-held Idlib province in the northwest of the country and seized multiple major cities. And it says if HTS gains control of the government, they do not know what they will do. It says, will they revert back to when it was affiliated with Al-Qaeda? Javed Ali, associate professor at the University of Michigan's Ford School of Public Policy, said during an appearance on ABC Live. Or will it be more like the Taliban in Afghanistan, which is Islamist conservative, but not for the most part intent on threatening its neighbors, having the country used as a launching pad against the West? We shall see, but I just wanted to just show that I'm not making up stuff when I say that it's a terrorist group. Now, because of that, now we're going to take, I just want to clear that up, but I want to do it 20 minutes less. I want to move now to what's happening in Russia, because we've shown many times the connection between Russia and Iran and everything, right? So it says, Ukraine's attack them strike Russia chemical plant that making rocket fuel. This is from this morning. It says Ukrainian forces reportedly struck a Russian chemical plant in Rostov Oblast yesterday, according to Reuters. December 18th, yesterday. Using at least 13 missiles and 84 drones, Kyiv struck the region and caused a fire to break out at the Kaminsky chemical plant known for making rocket fuel, among other components. Russian military bloggers for the Telegram channel Military Informant alleged that Ukrainian forces used Attacker missiles or Storm Shadow missiles in the attack, both of which would be missiles that are supplied by the United States. Mr. Putin has said previously that any attack by a foreign government helping Ukraine, that attack on Russian soil will be considered an attack by that government. So in essence, because the ATACMS system can't be fired without the assistance of U.S. soldiers, Mr. Putin considers that an attack on the Russian homeland by the United States. Just wanted to put that out there. Now, it says Ukraine's strike on the chemical plant is significant as it marks another attempt to inflict damage on one of Russia's profitable profitable industries, and a key element to the Russian military's continued fight against Kyiv. Hits on all facilities make it difficult for Moscow to keep troops on the front line. And with a shortage in troops, it is more crucial than ever for troops to be in Kursk. There's not a shortage of troops. The shortage of troops is not in Russia. They don't have a shortage of troops. They have 170,000 people in reserve. The shortage of troops is with Ukraine. Anyway, Carnegie Russian Center fellow Sergei Vakulenko previously wrote that one of the biggest ramifications of the attack on oil refiners is the cost of repairs. They're probably in the vicinity of tens of millions of dollars per plant. Now, the thing about it is that Mr. Putin has said that he will respond to these provocations with his new weapon, right? And he's basically saying, plain and simple, well, you can say that the conflicts are moot to you, but the end game is nuclear war that obliterates everybody. Because Mr. Putin has already said, plain and simple, if it comes down to it, I will annihilate everybody. Because they have the most nuclear weapons on Earth. People in the US and Russia seem to think that he's bluffing. Maybe all their weapons don't work. We can shoot some of his stuff down. And what Mr. Putin has said, and we'll get to it shortly, is that let's test that theory that you can stop my weapons. He said, I believe this was yesterday. He said, look, pick any spot in Ukraine, right? This is what he told America. set up your best air defenses, and I guarantee you I'll obliterate that spot. Now think about that, right? If the United States took up that challenge and he obliterates the Ukraine, the United States will be a laughing stock before the world and will be forced to attack Russia. But if you attack Russia, what do we know? We know you can't defend against what he's coming with because he already tested it out. Right? Think about that. He's saying, you know what? I know what I got. You can't defend. But let's see. I'll give you a free. This is crazy when you think about it. He's literally saying, I'll give you a free shot. But understand, once I prove to you that you can't stop me, I then know that I can completely obliterate you because you can't stop me. You can try to retaliate, but who cares? You don't have a country. Like the people in Europe, I don't know what they're thinking about because they're so close to Russia that if he were to arm the new Oreshnik hypersonic missile, because the way it deploys multiple warheads, if he were to arm that with nuclear warheads, none of those countries can do anything. Like it'll be over before they even realize the thing's been launched. So what they're thinking about, I don't know. Greetings to Sister Poetry. So why the people haven't just overthrown their governments or voted in some new people or whatever and just said, hey man, I'm not in that stuff. I don't know what they're thinking about. Right? I wouldn't be willing to stand there next to the big bully, the bear, when the bear growls and say, you know what, let me put on soup made out of steak so the bear can come eat me. I wouldn't be willing to do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm here in America and I'm like, yo, this is stupid. This is crazy. I've done the scenarios. I know pretty much the Northern Hemisphere is not going to exist. Being completely honest, if I had some money, I'd be doing this live stream from somewhere in the Southern Hemisphere. I don't know where. You know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't be talking to you from the United States because this is stupid. There's no other way I can put it. Antagonizing people with this type of technology and betting that it probably don't work or whatever people are thinking, because I know what some people think. They want the war, okay? But the other people, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know, like Britain, I don't know what they're thinking. Italy don't even have enough people, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what they're thinking about. Maybe because they ain't got enough people, they ain't worried about it. Germany, like some of these countries, because of their antagonistic relationship with Russia, they can't even keep their heat on because they was getting their gas from Russia. Again, yeah, I know you part of NATO, you signed a treaty or whatever. Right now, it's looking like a bad deal. I don't know what these people are thinking, right? It just, you know, sometimes you got to look at your homeboy and say, look, I know you got beef with this dude, but realistically, you on the wrong side of this one and you really should stand down because I'm standing next to him. So when he starts shooting, I'm more likely to get hit than you are. You know what I'm saying? At least let me move out the way before the shooting starts. Like, come on, man, this is crazy. So anyway, let me get back to it. So says Kovalenko wrote that the chemical plant produces rocket fuel for engines, multiple launch rocket systems, and solid fuel intercontinental ballistic missiles, as well as explosives and munition components. Okay, well, there's a key installation. The city of Novoshakhtinsk, in which the chemical plant is located, is approximately 10 kilometers from the Russian-Ukraine border and more than 200 kilometers from the front line, according to the Kyiv Independent says the Kaminsky chemical plant, also known as Novoshinsky oil refinery, has been a frequent target of Ukraine's attacks, as the plant was hit by drones in June for the third time this year, causing a fire. The attack destroyed 1.5 million tons of oil and oil products worth $500 million, and the chemical plant was later partially shut down in March after an attack. The General Staff of Armed Forces of Ukraine reported that the chemical plant is the only one operating in the region and produces 7.5 million tons annually, specializing in the production of fuel oil, furnace, marine and diesel oil, and straight-run gasoline. Since the war began in February, Ukraine has conducted at least 13 successful attacks on oil refineries. Now, as I said, all of that is under the auspices of the United States, because the reason the United States wants to do this war is they want to try to weaken Russia. Which, I mean, if you're the US, you're not really worried about it. But here's the problem. All right, and if you're Israel, this works in your favor. If you're a Ukrainian, this is not good. Because what Putin initially wanted to do was just use his might and roll over to Ukraine, right? That didn't work. Now, you're just waging a war of attrition. I was looking at some stuff on Telegram and YouTube today, seeing where they are. They're just slowly just eating up territory and just slowly taking over territory. And by the time Mr. Trump gets in office and gets settled, most of the Russian-speaking area of Ukraine will be in the hands of Russia. And I don't think there's much of anything that's going to make Mr. Putin give that back. If you're the US, that's something you can negotiate. If you're a Ukrainian, that ain't what you want, right? So they're being used, and the Ukrainian people, there's no benefit for them. So again, we talk about people who doing stuff and you don't know why. Okay. Now, here's the thing. We talked about Antony Blinken. This is Antony Blinken's policy. The reason we know it's Antony Blinken's policy is because Trump says it was stupid for Biden to let Ukraine use U.S. weapons to strike deeper into Russia. All right, that's Mr. Trump. I don't know, where is he at? That's his house. That's Mar-a-Lago. Okay. For some reason, looks like a Catholic cathedral or something. I don't know. Maybe he has a prayer room or something. I don't know what's going on there. Since President-elect Donald Trump on Monday suggested that he may reverse Joe Biden's recent decision to allow Ukrainian forces to use American long-range weapons to strike deeper into Russia. Trump called the decision made by Biden last month stupid. He also expressed anger that his incoming administration was not consulted before Biden made the move. With the loosening of the restrictions Biden gave Ukraine long sought permission to use the ATACMS, that's what they call, provided by the U.S. to strike Russian positions hundreds of miles from its border. I don't think we should have allowed it, not when there's a possibility, certainly not just weeks before I take over. Why would they do this without asking me what I thought? I wouldn't have had him do it. I think it was a big mistake. Trump's withering criticism of the Biden administration's move comes as the Democratic administration aims to push every last dollar already designated for Ukraine out the door to so-called help repel Russia's invasion, which in reality is that Russia reclaiming territory and repelling an assault by NATO after the CIA overthrew the duly elected Ukrainian president. They're not going to put that stuff in here. Anyway, but even as Biden tries to surge weaponry and other aid to Ukraine in his final 5 weeks in office, the moment underscored that it's Trump who holds the most significant influence over how Ukraine can use its U.S. provided arsenal in the long run. It's a critical piece of leverage he can use to follow through on campaign pledge to bring about a swift end to the conflict. Asked if he would consider reversing the Biden administration decision, Trump responded, "I might. I think it was a very stupid thing to do." White House pushed back on Trump's criticism, noting that the decision was made after months of deliberations that started before last month's election. All I can assure you is that the conversation we had with them since the election, and we've had various levels, we have articulated to them the logic behind it, the thinking behind it, why we were doing it. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said of the current administration's coordination with the outgoing administration. Trump's relationship with Russian leader Vladimir Putin has been scrutinized since 2016 campaign for president, when he called on Russia to find and make public missing emails deleted by Hillary Clinton. I had forgot about that, his Democratic opponent. Trump publicly sided with Putin over U.S. intelligence officials on whether Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help him. That whole Russia Gate and all that stuff was pure propaganda. Meanwhile, the intelligence services and the Mossad covered up what was really going on, which was the Biden laptop. But anyway, we all know that now. Says Trump has praised the Russian leader and even called him pretty smart for invading Ukraine. I never heard that. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, who I cannot stand because I don't trust him, has said that while the U.S. has differences with Russia, it was counterproductive to approach Moscow as an enemy. Trump on Monday reiterated his call on both Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky and President Putin to negotiate an end to the war, calling the death and despair caused by the conflict carnage. But Trump also appeared to acknowledge that finding an immediate end game to the war, something he has previously said he would get done within 24 hours of taking office, could be difficult. Says, "I think the Middle East will be in a good place," Trump said, referring to the conflict in Gaza and an unsettled Syria following the ouster of Bashar al-Assad. "I think actually more difficult is going to be the Russia-Ukraine situation," Trump declared. Trump declined to say whether he had spoken with Putin since the election. Zelensky met with Trump in Paris earlier this month while the president-elect was visiting France for the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral. Zelensky and other Ukraine officials have been making forceful effort to get Trump to maintain support for Ukraine. But the situation on the ground in Ukraine continues to remain complicated as both sides wrestle for battlefield advantage that will give them leverage in any negotiations to end the nearly 3-year war. It's not that complicated. Plain and simple, Ukraine is getting their teeth kicked in because, of course they are. You know what I'm saying? They're running out of people. So, because time is running short, we're going to get to the end game. We're going to get to these last two articles. Number one says a top Russian general was killed in Moscow bombing claimed by Ukraine. Senior Russian general was killed Tuesday by a bomb hidden in a scooter outside his apartment building in Moscow, a day after Ukraine security services leveled criminal charges against him. Lieutenant General Igor Igor, the chief of the military's nuclear, biological, and chemical protection forces, was killed as he left for his office. His assistant also died in the attack. Now, I'm going to tell you why this is important. This gentleman was in charge of finding out about the chemical and biological weapons labs that they had in Ukraine that Russia was talking about before this whole war started, right? So I don't know if y'all remember, but they were saying that, in fact, Russia was saying that Hillary Clinton had authorized these chemical and biological weapons labs, and that they were testing Russia DNA to try to make weapons directly to destroy Russians, right? So this gentleman was in charge of those investigations and countering those things that they were doing. So the Ukraine killed him, which means in reality that the CIA did it, because he probably has information on illegal bioweapons labs that the U.S. is either funding or running, right? which I don't know if that's connected to Mr. Fauci, but it probably is. So that's why they killed that jump. Now, I just wanted to cover that real quick because that just happened. It says that Karyov 54 was under sanctions from several countries, including the UK and Canada, for his actions in Moscow's war in Ukraine. On Monday, Ukraine's Secret Service, or SBU, opened a so-called criminal investigation against him, accusing him of directing the use of banned chemical weapons. Remember what I said about whenever they accuse you of something, it's because they're doing it? Yeah, more than likely, it's Ukraine using the banned chemical weapons. Anyway, said an official with the SBU said the agency was behind the attack. The official who spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to release the information, described Karyov as a war criminal and an entirely legitimate target. So basically what we can see here is that Ukraine is desperate and they want to kick up this war as much as possible because they believe that it will force Russia's hand to do something more extreme, which will force the United States to back them even more. I don't know about that part. You know what I'm saying? Could that happen with Mr. Trump in office? Yeah, sure. Could he just leave them out to dry? Yeah, he can. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Only Mr. Trump knows what he's going to do when he wakes up, right? And that's why everybody that's why they kind of rock with him and they kind of don't. Because nobody really knows, because he doesn't. Now, last article. So what I talked about earlier. Putin challenges West to high-tech duel to test missile defense. Says Russia President Vladimir Putin on Thursday challenged Western powers to high-tech duel in Kyiv to test out the military capabilities of both sides. Putin, speaking at his annual end-of-year news conference, also said he was ready to work with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump to end the war in Ukraine that the Kremlin started nearly 3 years ago, but in actuality started 10 years ago when the United States overthrew the Ukrainian ruler. Gotta keep reiterating that. In one of the most eyebrow-raising moments of the marathon session in Moscow, Putin claimed Western air defenses are incapable of intercepting Russia's new Oreshnik hypersonic missile and threw down a gauntlet on a duel. There's no chance of shooting down these missiles, Putin said. If the West has any doubts about the missile's capabilities, it can name a target in Kyiv protected by all available air defense weapons, which would then be targeted by the Oreshnik. This would be an experiment, a high-tech duel of the 21st century, according to the Russian leader. It would then become clear whether Western powers can stop the missile, he said, expressing Russia's readiness to participate. Putin was responding to a question from the Russian army channel Zvezda, which was quoted in an alleged assessment by Western experts that the Oreshnik could be easily defeated in its initial stages. Russia first fired the missile, which can, in principle, be equipped with nuclear weapons, at the Ukrainian city of Dnipro in November. However, allegedly, the damage was minor. Here's the thing. They've never shown the site where it was hit. Ukraine had it. So the idea that the damage was minor, they haven't shown. So we don't know that. That's what they say. So, I'm going to play the video of Mr. Putin. I try to get my voice together, and then we're going to close out, right? So, y'all know how we do. Pause the track, load the clip.
The experts and the West think so. well, let them come up with a proposal to us and to the US. They can suggest kind of a technological experiment, kind of a high-tech fighting duel of the 21st century. They can designate a target, say in Kiev. They can concentrate all of their air defense and anti-missile defense there, and we will strike it with a Reshnik, and we'll see what's going to happen. We are willing to conduct such an experiment.
Now, that is, y'all see, I'm not making stuff up. Mr. Putin said that with the Oreshnik and the way it deploys, that it basically would take the place of a tactical nuclear weapon. And he's so confident that, oh, my bad. Music, please. He's so confident that he's willing to. I want y'all to think about this. He's willing to test it out and give the West every advantage to defend Ukraine. So we've reached an inflection point where things could go sideways real quick. Now, if Mr. Trump does what he said he was going to do and tries to help diffuse this situation, it'd be beneficial for everyone involved. If he doesn't, things could spiral out of control. And we know that there are forces who want these things to spiral out of control. Right? And as much as, I would like to think that this conflict would be contained and the same people would prevail, let's just be honest. Do we really think that the people who are in charge of the world are sane? Like, really? Like, looking at the condition of the world right now, can we really say that? We know we can't say that. So, I just wanted to give an update on where things stand geopolitically, as far as those countries, basically the West versus the East. Africa is basically intertwined in this, due to alliances that we have on one side and due to being controlled by people on the other side. And those of us who are here in America, you're sitting here with a bullseye on our back. In reality, thanks largely to Mr. Biden and Victoria Nuland and Antony Blinken and people like that. So I just want to give you all an update on that. I'm sure that no one else is really covering this stuff from a Black perspective. And so that's why I wanted to put this on the table. So with that, thank you all for listening. Again, follow me on Instagram, dc.radical1, Twitter at dcradical_ONE, OTW2 at dcradical1. And if you could put a few coins in the Cashapp, I would greatly appreciate it. $ dcradical1. And you can email me at dc.radical_1 protonmail.com. And again, I thank everybody who joined via the membership. And if anyone wants to join via the membership, actually, I think if you just go to the channel, you'll see a join button and it'll give you the options. And when I take my hiatus, probably in January, I'll be working on some more emojis and things for you all. So for the members, so that you can use. The way things are going, apparently I might have to get I have to make a mushroom cloud emoji. The way things are going. So if things go as planned, I'll be back on tomorrow night and with an episode of SBL Talk. And we will, I think I'll probably talk about, like I said, the Travis Hunter thing. That's the plan right now, unless something else happens. So again, thank you all for listening. And everyone that has subscribed, thank all the subscribers. Don't forget to like and share. If you missed any part of the program, you can run it back. Send it to a friend that you think might be interested in what's going on with the world. Again, if you would like to, you can now join the channel. That's a new thing. And you can also even leave super thanks. So if you don't see it live, you can leave those. And again, like I said, you can also donate directly via the Cash App, $ dcradical1. That's it. That's all I got for tonight. And I'm your host, DC Radical 1. This is the center. And with that, I say a BB for ODA and straight Black pride. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also follow us on our other social media platforms. On Instagram, we're at dc.radical1. On Twitter, we're at dc_radical_ONE. And the Cash App is $ dcradical1. Again, thank you for subscribing. A BB for ODA and straight Black pride.